What would you say to someone that feels they're late to Bitcoin now that it's at $100,000?
That's a good question. Like, yeah, I think we're still early. I mean, until we see Bitcoin,
Does it have 100x in it?
yeah, well, I mean, how much more to go to dollar set parity,
Yeah.
right? But here's the thought exercise. Next time you're stopped at an intersection at a red light, watch the people crossing on the crosswalk and ask yourself how many of them know about Bitcoin. Probably not many of them, right? You can test this, like go to a restaurant and say, can I pay in Bitcoin? Watch them laugh at you. And then you can understand exactly how early you are.
Yeah. Where are we on the S curve?
Still
Early adopter?
Still early adopter.
Early adopter. Gotcha. What advice would you give to your younger self if you knew, you got into Bitcoin where Bitcoin was not as certain? I got into Bitcoin class of 2016. I remember the block wars. It was not fun.
Yeah.
Now we know that Jihan and that we want to be specific with the names, but let's just say that they were artificially making the hash rate go higher.
Yeah.
And they were doing some interesting things with exchanges to do the volume, and there was a lot of uncertainty at that point. You questioned yourself as a Bitcoiner, said, "Is this Bitcoin Cash thing like? Are they right? Like now we know after the fact."
Well, I knew. You knew.
Now we know after the fact. Yeah, but it's because I got into Bitcoin through mining. But I would say if you're looking at that, if you're an observer, you don't know, right? You're looking at that, you're like, oh my God, like is this a switch? So what I'm trying to say is you got in way earlier, right? Things were a lot more uncertain back then. Did you always know? What advice would you give to your younger self? Is it just going to be like, I wish I bought more?
Yeah, of course. That's the wish everyone has.
Okay, let's scratch that one out. What other advice would you give your younger self?
For Bitcoin specifically?
Bitcoin, entrepreneurship, whatever.
I think just focus and think about things. That's the advice I would give.
And could you elaborate a little bit about why you would give yourself that advice?
Because I think most people don't think deeply about topics. And if you really analyze a lot of things, I think you can reason out through first principles thinking, what is the right answer? Like, who's right in the block size war? You have to really step back and objectively look at the motivations and incentives of everyone. So I think that's the biggest thing to think. Like, if I was really young and I had to tell myself something, just think more about everything, analyze everything.
What motivated you to start Jan 3?
I want to accelerate Bitcoin adoption. So if Bitcoin adoption, if hyper-Bitcoinization is this demonetization event, there's a lot of preparation that has to go into onboarding humanity to Bitcoin. And the wallet obviously is a major touch point, right? Most people they're not going to get a node. They're just going to download a wallet and in an app store. So you need to have that solid and ready to onboard people. But engaging with governments, getting them ready so that they don't, in the time of failing currencies, they don't accidentally adopt Ethereum or something as a sound money. So it's preparation work so that people understand Bitcoin, know how to handle Bitcoin, and are ready. Because it's going to be messy. And we've seen this in recent history. India had a demonetization event in 2016 where they just pulled some notes out of circulation. And that was a big mess. And people died because hospitals would not accept the bills.
That's
and
crazy.
People were lining up at the banks and dying of exposure to heat. These things are not orderly. So I think, given that I'm so bullish, I think it's going to go very rapidly, we should be out there engaging and educating and trying to onboard people ahead of time, getting parallel systems in place where you have your fiat currency and you have Bitcoin, because that's the softest way, being able to move in. And back to your other question, at which point are we not early? When you cannot buy Bitcoin with fiat. That is late.
Interesting. Are central bank digital currencies still a threat?
I don't think they were ever really a threat because people don't want to use them. Every country that's rolled out a CBDC has sort of failed. Even in China, which you would think, yeah, they could pull it off because you can't use VPNs, there's great firewall and whatnot, but barely anyone is using the CBDC. And then Nigeria had the e-Naira.
It was a total failure.
Total failure.
Yeah.
And they had to actually clamp down and limit ATM withdrawals to force people to use what they initially marketed as a convenience tool and to help you. to keep you safe. But if it's so good and so safe, why do you need to beat people over the head to use it?
Yeah.
There should be no need for coercion, but you do, because people may not understand Bitcoin, but they're not stupid. They're not going to use something where they can't get out. They're not going to check into the Roach Motel, right? Well, some do, but those are, we call them shitcoiners. But generally, people know this is inferior monetary technology. They may not be able to quantify it and describe it, but they know inside.
Yeah. And what's really interesting what you said about the coercive aspect, right? Like CBDCs, fiat, they do require a form of coercion for people to use. I think the reason Bitcoin's going to win ultimately is it's incentives. It just comes down to incentives. Bitcoin incentivizes people for them to use it. There is no coercion in the equation. And to me, when I really learned that lesson, Samson, was when the China mining ban happened.
Yeah.
And the hash rate dropped 50%. Within 9 months, the hash rate recovered, decentralizing the process, went all over the world, Texas, Kazakhstan, and there was no Bitcoin CEO essentially whipping people to plug in those miners. It was just the Bitcoin network incentivizing people, entrepreneurs, miners, to plug those machines back in.
Yeah.
So it was pretty crazy. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah, those
So
were fun times.
yeah, I mean, it was kind of a bummer because it cut 2021 short. Like I really believe, I know there's all these other theories, but you look at the hash rate and you look at the price drop, it's like, it's obvious that that's what it was.
Well, FTX cut the last one short too.
Yeah.
That's why I think we should be at 200 right now.
Yeah.
Everything under 200 is, you know,
It's bearish.
it's a joke.
So, what are the things that worry you about Bitcoin the most?
I think Bitcoin is pretty solid right now. I don't really have too many worries. If I had to pick one, it would be sometime in the future, we might have something like a block size war or a civil war. And it might be from the traditional finance system, like the legacy finance system. Because if you look at the BlackRock ETF filing, they actually say in there, we get to choose which chain is Bitcoin if there is a split, which is incorrect. And if they amend that, I'll feel better. But until they do, I think that's a risk hanging over our heads. There's a chance that even if that doesn't happen, that Bitcoin can split into two. You have institutional Bitcoin and free Bitcoin. Institutional Bitcoin is just locked up in ETFs, in custodians, and it's not allowed to leave. And we see little snips and glimpses into the future of that, right? In the UK, you can only transfer from one exchange to another exchange, right? Little bits of, Orwellian garbage here and there. But that could really happen. You just have free Bitcoin, which is transacted in Argentina, El Salvador, and everywhere else. And then everything else is locked up in a system and it can't escape.
What can we do as a community to avoid that scenario?
There may be no way to avoid it, but you can protect yourself by keeping your Bitcoin yourself. Anything that's in the system or connected to the system, you have to understand there is some risk to it there, and you may not be able to take it out of that system.
That leads me to my next question, which is the idea of self-custody. I think I've been doing this 9 years, and I have this very, ideological view on self-custody. It's like, not your keys, not your cheese. But in actuality, I'm the Uncle Jim of my family and my extended family. And even though I've showed them 1,000 times how to do it, for whatever reason, writing down 12 to 24 words is like rocket science. So, and then in my experience, to use your analogy of earlier on in regards to people walking across the street, the idea of not having a 1-800 number to call is radical. It's uncomfortable. And now that leads me to like my conclusion that I've come to with self-custody is, have we underestimated human nature as Bitcoiners?
I don't think so. We're just going back to the way it was. When everyone was using gold, who's the 1-800 number? There's no 1-800 number. We've just been coddled and, domesticated into the fiat system that we think it's normal to be able to have someone help you, The reality is you have to take care of your money yourself. Someone else can't take care of it for you. Or you think they can, but they're going to steal it slowly, if not immediately. So you have to take your assets into your own hands. Your destiny is your own. And I think we've done that in the past with gold. We can do it again.
Need liquidity without having to sell your Bitcoin? For more than 6 years now, Ledn has been the trusted choice for Bitcoin-backed lending with transparency, security, and trust at their core. I absolutely love these guys, and I personally have not only an account with them, but also a loan. And some of the key features that I love about Ledn is the fact that there are no monthly payments. You pay at the end of the term. You also have the ability to roll over the loan as well, and you can pay it back whenever you want. Essentially what they do is that they help their clients unlock the liquidity of their BTC, allowing you to hodl while still accessing the wealth of your Bitcoin. They've been battle tested with their focus on transparency, security, and trust, allowing them to build a proven track record of client success and security, helping tens of thousands of clients harness the value of their digital assets with confidence and peace of mind. Learn more about what your BTC can do for you. Check out ledn.io today.